Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Lifestyle with Dr. Moby. I'm Dr. Moby, and let's welcome Reyshan Parker, right?
That's correct. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir, for coming to our show. Sorry, Carl could not join, and probably will definitely have him next time. So tell us about yourself, sir.
I'm a writer, a director, a television host, a comedian not from the stage. But right now, mostly I travel the country finding worker-owned restaurants and highlighting the positive side of the service industry by finding fantastic chef owners and finding out about their lives, the history of the restaurant, and they cook up and I get to try some of the best dishes they have to offer. I also drag my very picky wife with me so that she can try things that she would not normally eat, which I get a kick out of. I don't know how she feels about it.
That's very nice, very nice. So, that's a great work you're doing. So tell me a little bit, how did you start or when did you start both?
So I did my master's in like film and television, and I worked in the service industry for over 20 years. And I worked in the film industry at the same time doing, multiple different faceted things. And I had started this company called Independent Lasagna Productions. And it was really just like a company to make like micro budget feature films, and it didn't have anything to do with food really. And so I made a feature film, like this stoner comedy feature film, and I made a show called Media Matters where I tried to go find really positive small businesses, and we would redo their website, make them commercials, and basically just fix their online presence. And that was a lot. It was just a lot because I fund all of this myself. This is all just passion projects, right? And so I don't have like a studio behind me or anything. I'm literally I pay to go help these restaurants. I wanted to give back somehow while still doing what I love to do. And so we made like a pilot episode and then one full episode, and it was just so much work. And the web designer I had working was doing it for free too, and it just took almost sometimes upwards to 6 months to a year to like completely overhaul their entire online presence.
Yeah.
And so I decided I need to do something simpler. And I'm like, I have a company called Independent Lasagna. Why aren't I making food stuff? I work in the service industry, my whole life, and why aren't I doing that? My sister owns a restaurant. So I was like, I'm gonna go, do, exposés on chefs in the restaurants. And so I called my sister, and my father had actually passed away. And we were having his celebration of life party up high. And so I made my wife help me. I got my sister to help me while we were there. And I was like, my other sister, I have 3 sisters. And I was like, I'm gonna film this thing at your restaurant, and you and your husband are gonna be in it. And they're like, okay, sure, whatever. And so I filmed it, and I got back home and put it all together, and I showed it to some people, and they're like, that might be the best thing you ever made.
Wow.
I was like, touche. So I used that pilot, and I called a producer friend of mine, and he knows a couple chefs, and so he called his buddy who owns a restaurant called Noble Fare in Savannah. And so that was my episode 2, because he showed it to him and he's like, oh yeah, great. Oh yeah, I'd love to do that. And so we filmed that one. And then a server at that restaurant was like, oh, you have to go out to, this place called Poor Richard's out in Bluffton. It's fantastic. So I called them and did that. And they're like, oh, you need to go see Mir over in. So it just kind of rolled from restaurant to restaurant, from recommendation, just off shooting that pilot. And then after that, we actually shot the last episode of season 1 on March 7th of 2020. So right before the pandemic, we wrapped, and a week later, the country shut down. And so unexpectedly, it was a hard time for restaurants. And so going into season 2, like pretty much in the middle of COVID, December of 2020, to find out, how they were dealing with it and who's surviving. And so I got to meet, a lot of really, really awesome owners who did the pivot, to online. It maybe people who'd never done carry out before, ever, right? All of a sudden are doing all carry out and just figuring out how to be more online. That didn't usually have a website or focus on that had to, in order to survive, they had to figure it out. And so it was really cool to get to meet and hear the stories, which you can go hear too, Beyond the Check, streaming on Amazon Prime and Tubi TV. And yeah, it's just fantastic meeting awesome, really cool chefs who are doing everything right. As opposed to always seeing on television, like Kitchen Nightmares, where it's always, he goes in and helps them because they need the help. But I wanted to highlight the people who are already doing it right on their own, who source locally and have seasonal menus, and their employees love working there already.
Very nice, very nice. So tell me, do you just highlight any type of chef and cooking, or is there any particular you have interest?
I mean, any type of cuisine will fly. My stipulations are that for the most part, they only have the one restaurant. They actually are the chef who works there on a regular daily basis. And because they're all in, that's their passion. It's their restaurant. They don't have to work for anyone else. But they're also, they're not to the point where that's a restaurant corporation or they have 5 restaurants around the country. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, the people who are in it and doing it every day, sweat, blood, and tears, right?
Yeah. So they're doing more for passion because they love cooking and they love to actually showcase not only their cooking but their art, right?
Yeah. And it's usually like local gems, like local favorites that, the people know the chef, around the community. And so it's it's more of a small knit thing that if you can find a Gordon Ramsay restaurant around the world in multiple different places, right, but you can only find one Amanda Rastafari Italian restaurant, right, and it's Pomodori in one little town.
Yeah, and that is true. So also tell me a little bit about COVID. I know with COVID we talked a little bit, there was shutdown of most of restaurants, big chains, and so how I know it's been now. I'm glad things are moving towards norm and they're much better than what we used to. So, but still, some businesses will never come back.
No, and I a lot of that is regional. So across the country, it's a spot work of like where the most failures happen as opposed to where the most returns happen, right? And so in California and New York City, shit, 70% of those restaurants just there's no way they weren't allowed to do things, and for so long that they failed. And other places like Texas or Georgia, where they were allowed to reopen quickly, right, or at least have limitations on what they were doing, but still operate, manage to find ways to make money, even if it was putting tables outside, or if it was, doing just the curbside delivery, or when they were allowed to have 25% capacity and then 50% capacity, which allowed them to scale their way back into surviving. And parts of the country didn't even have that option. They were just not allowed to open. And some people just didn't, who could have done outdoor dining or delivery, or they didn't have the know-how to, get the technology working for them. And so it's spotted around the country, depending on where you were, what your restrictions were, really depended on whether you survived or not. And so being in Savannah for season 2, I couldn't really go far, so I stayed around Georgia and South Carolina, and those places did have the opportunity to bounce back. And so that's who I saw in season 2. And season 3, I'm going to Texas to find, we're at work shortages and all that. Season 3, like, what the aftermath of it all.
Mm. Yeah, no, that is so true that, it was more of also region, but also I think the big chain or big restaurant probably will have hard time coming back, because I think their overheads were so huge. Small shops, if they survive this, then probably they will be fine. I think a lot of restaurant owners I knew, they relied heavily, of course, on takeouts, and those who had a big dining halls or something, they that was killer. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And
So
you also needed to have that community support in order to be the takeout, right? So you have
that is
all
true.
these options. So if you have a good community reputation, because
Mhm.
no one's traveling to you, right? So you have to have a core
Mhm.
local following in order to survive that kind of situation.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a great point, that the community support. So I during also COVID, I wanted to make sure, all these few of these small shops, I would intentionally go and out and just get some. So because many days I was maybe one of the 10 clients they're gonna see all day. So so that was sad, very sad. But I knew that. But I went there 3-4 times a week for sure, and they appreciate it because they said, well, at least we have something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is important. If community wants to make sure everybody kind of gets something, I mean, and whatever power we have, and we can make those, then I think that says a lot about community.
It's kind of like a vote, right? Like you came to my shop in the darkest of times. You want me here. You believe in our company. You like my food. You picked me.
Yeah, and many people were actually working continuously. It's unbelievable because they were short staffed. A lot of people left, and they either had COVID or were afraid to work in with COVID, and then they didn't want to face customers. So yeah, they were short staffed for sure. They were very short staffed, and
Uh, they,
then mm,
they still are.
yeah, and they still are. That's true. So I think it's like anything. It's gonna be survival. It's gonna be a story about survival and how, as a group, as a community, as just all humans, they help each other and get us back. Um, it's never going to be about one thing, right?
No, I mean, it's a cleansing, right? So every
Yeah.
once in a while you have one, and I think New York City, particularly, that's how I think they look at it. Is there was a boom and it was oversaturated with restaurants, and and it kind of just wiped clean the slate and made this new platform for people to care a little bit more about what they were doing instead of just 1,000 restaurants a day popping up. That just yeah.
Yeah, and then also, even where people were living, so people were actually crowded all into big apartments and all that. And now we saw that with COVID, a lot of deaths were in those, big high rises because the ventilation system, everything was so hard to clean. Yeah. So then how
Just
now?
a big box, man.
Yeah, big now people were going out of because myself, I'm a big fan of New York downtown, and I, with COVID, that's why I don't want to go there or live there because this is gonna be really devastating. So
Oh
you
no,
rather.
everybody's rushed to buy country property. Like we bought a house this year, and it was if you didn't get the house that day, you weren't getting the house.
Mm.
I think it's slowing down a little now.
And I think also it brings more awareness on what really matters to humans. So you know that at the end of the day, it will be your loved ones, close one, and friends, and those are the ones who really matter. And when people were dying, and I'm of course in healthcare, and when people were in their god forbid they had covid and they were dying and they had to say goodbyes, and those were they realized that the only time they spent or said quality time they had with their loved ones, that's what really mattered. Everything else was just nothing.
And now
So
you had to do it over the phone because you couldn't go see them in person.
yeah, it was very sad. It was very sad, say goodbyes to on a phone, and then if, or at least not being able to see people for days, or just staring at the walls. I think it was very sad for a lot of my patients, for sure. Even my parent, my father had COVID, and this was.
I've had it twice.
Oh, you got right. Oh my.
Oh yeah, good times. First time wasn't so bad. First time was like one day of just like body aches and it kind of went away. And then the second time was like I lost my taste and smell and laid up for like 7 days. But
Okay.
I got
And
it back real quick. My taste came back like 3 days after I started to feel better. So I
so
love
I hope you got the vaccine, right?
now I do, but back then I was like going right back to work. And so like you said earlier, like everyone had to go back to work or not go back to work, and you had to make the decision of what you were going to do. And
Mhm.
so, literally, I had hurt my back before I went back to work, and so it was like 2 weeks in after like stuff had reopened,
Mhm.
and I couldn't go back. And finally, they called me like, "Is your back better yet? Because everybody has COVID, and we need you to come to work."
I know. I know. Uh, also, tell
Like,
me what are
I'll
your
be there.
future projects for you? What did for you next
Uh,
3 months?
I don't know when this is airing, but we are getting ready to leave for Texas for season 3 of Beyond the Check. We're driving a Tesla
Wow.
to 1,133 miles from Savannah to Austin. It's a low range. It's the 240-mile range. So I'm going to blog about that the whole way there. So if anyone's bored and wants to watch me drive to Texas in a Tesla, feel free to do that.
Okay. Well, I'll be looking forward for sure, and I'll be looking forward to hear from you on the blog, and looking forward to your season 3. So, what things you want to get in season 3 which you didn't do in season 2?
So we're doing some more fun things. If anybody's watched the first couple seasons, you've seen my wife slowly, progressively smile more. And so our other co-host, Nikki, who's our cinematographer, she usually eats at the end, but they're both going to have segments, and they're going to hang out with the chefs and learn how to cook some things too, besides just me. So more of the girls. You're going to get more of the girls. Um, and we have some really awesome restaurants. I'm not just finding the regular Texas food in Texas. Like we are going to Tupac comes directly from their farm. So if you want to know the name of your steak, you literally probably can ask and they can tell you.
Mhm.
uh,
So, which part in Texas are you heading?
we're going to be around the Austin area, Dallas area, and we're going to be in Bryan, Texas.
Okay. Yeah, I've been to Dallas, and I think for restaurant, there are a lot of restaurants there, and then you will really love, checking out different.
It's my first time actually hanging out in Texas. So
Wow, wow. Then a
I've
lot
driven
of,
through.
yeah. Oh,
I've
you're driven.
I've seen the Land Rover police cars and the Ferrari police cars passing through, but I'm gonna hang. You've noticed that whenever you're in Texas, all the police cars are like high-end vehicles. Like they are Ferraris, they are Lamborghinis, they have Land Rovers. They,
Wow,
the
very nice.
police in Texas have the best cars.
Oh, I did not know that. See, I
Uh
did.
huh.
Mm. So I thought it's Florida has the best car.
Florida has a lot of things. I don't know that.
Oh, okay. I don't know where I saw the ad about they were coming out of the Ferrari, or
I mean, I'm sure they do. They're all basically like confiscated vehicles, right? So usually from drug busts or something to
Mhm.
confiscated, right? You don't just buy Ferraris for the police force. That's something you picked up in a raid.
Mhm. Yeah. So, what is your favorite cuisine, or what are some of the dishes you really want to eat when you are there?
Oh, people always ask me that. Probably one of my favorite foods, just generally speaking, is Chinese food. American Chinese. Not like I'm not that adventurous, really.
Original Chinese.
But we're going to a noodle place in Texas called Chen's Noodle House,
Mhm.
and his name's George, and he used to work at this Michelin star restaurant, and I guess they had a falling out, so he left, and he opened a super tiny little hole in the wall noodle house in a strip mall. And so I'm super excited to go there because he's going to make me like lots of traditional. He's going to make me noodles and traditional Chinese dishes that and he barely speaks English, so it's going to be authentic as we
Mhm.
can get. So I'm super pumped for that and excited to watch my wife eat the things that but she's not a big fan of Chinese food either. So I just get a kick out of it. Sometimes she likes stuff and it surprises her. So we'll try.
That's very good. Also, I want to on the same question. I want to ask you: when you are at home, who cooks? Is
I
you,
cook.
or you cook? Oh,
Yeah,
wow!
she doesn't cook.
And you make Chinese food, or do you make all kind of food?
So I was vegetarian all last month because I got tired of eating the same things, and also I'm trying to eat less sugar. I'm trying to eat less meat. Sugar and meat are bad for you, really. But everything in moderation.
That
Uh,
yeah.
s- so I was just having fun trying to make different vegetable dishes I like that resemble regular food
Mhm.
that she would eat. So it was all about trying. I'll eat it, but it was all about trying to make the vegetarian good
Mhm.
enough that she would actually be like, "Oh, I would have that again."
Mhm.
So like enchiladas.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, very simple vegetarian is just a vegetable spaghetti because no matter what, it's still spaghetti.
Yeah.
You put Parmesan on it. You give somebody a slice of garlic bread, they will eat it.
Mm. Okay, very nice, and good luck on your season 3. So tell my audience, please, where they can watch your shows. So.
So feel free to go on Amazon Video and you can watch Beyond the Check there. Or if you would like to watch it free on Fox's Tubi TV, you can also watch it there. And feel free to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Beyond the Check, LinkedIn, Beyond the Check. Popple me.
Okay, very nice, and good luck on season 3, and come back and again and tell us about how it's going and what are you experiencing about Texas, and also check out our shows too. So let me know if we can be of help for you. Take care. Thank you
Oh,
for coming.
we should definitely hang out again. Thank you for
Take
having
care.
me. Cheers.
Take care, sir. Thank you.
Bye bye.